And now we are going to talk about the mass shootings that we've experienced over the last several weeks. So, out of respect for the victims, we're going to have a moment of silence before we talk about this. Please join me in that moment of silence. All right. Thank you for joining me in that moment of silence. I greatly appreciate it. So we're going to talk about it. Okay. And you know what this is about, so I don't even have to say a trigger warning. If you need to get out of this, get out of it now, because we're about to get into some serious shit, especially with some of the things that people have lied about with the most recent one. Okay. All right, let's get into it. Another mass shooting happened this week, this time in Texas. Gun violence, gun control, the Second Amendment. Quote, "The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun." That's the refrain that pretty much sums up the talking points of most of the right in the United States. And, of course, the evergreen thoughts and prayers. There's always a lot of thoughts and prayers for the people left behind after the mass shootings that have become so regular in this country that they barely make a blip on our radar anymore. The left bemoans every shooting and every death. Democrat lawmakers don't get money from gun lobbies, so they're quick with the accusations against their colleagues after every shooting. Lots of words, but no meaningful action. This week, an 18-year-old, whose name we will not be reporting on the roundup, and nobody else should either. Just like we stopped reporting the names of suspected serial killers, entered an elementary school classroom in Uvalde, Texas. Before he was shot and killed by Border Patrol agents, yes, Border Patrol, ICE, he murdered 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers. What he did... Oh, I'm sorry. The shooter had no criminal record and no history of mental illness. What he did have was weapons. He had 2 AR-style rifles that he bought at a local federal firearms license on May 17th and May 20th. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, he also purchased 375 rounds of ammunition on May 18th. In Texas, an individual between the ages of 18 and 21 can buy a long gun or rifle, such as an AR-15. Carrying a gun in Texas required a permit until September of 2021, when a state law freed Texans from the permit requirement, known as constitutional carry. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill last summer, championed by gun rights advocates, that allowed for permitless carry. The law was criticized at the time by Democrats, with Representative Veronica Escobar of El Paso predicting at the time that it would cause more violence and loss. Abbott said on Wednesday, after Uvalde shooting, that, quote, "The ability of an 18-year-old to buy a long gun has been in place in the state for more than 60 years. Say that again. The ability to buy a long gun in the state of Texas has existed for more than 60 years. Of course, it's saying that it's not the law's fault, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the laws of guns in this country. But Abbott pushed aside any calls to strengthen gun laws, saying, quote, "We as a government need to find a way to target that mental health challenge and do something about it." Shortly after the news of the shooting began circulating, Senator Ted Cruz released a statement that said in part, "Heidi and I are uplifting our prayers to the entire Uvalde community during this devastating time, and we mourn the lives that were taken by this act of evil." It is an act of evil, but something has to be done about it. Now, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton said, quote, "We can't stop bad people from doing bad things. We can potentially arm and prepare and train teachers and other administrators to respond quickly. That, in my opinion, Ken Paxton's opinion, is the best answer." Because of course it is. Because again, only a good guy a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. We saw how well that worked out. Now, Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego of Arizona attacked Cruz on Twitter. Quote, "Fuck you, Ted Cruz. You care about a fetus, but you will let our children get slaughtered." Gallego posted on Twitter. "Just get your ass to Cancun. You're useless." Just to be clear, fuck you, Ted Cruz, you fucking baby killer, Guerrilla said in a second post. Candidate for governor's seat, Beto O'Rourke, crashed a press conference that features Texas Republicans approaching the stage and accusing Abbott and others of doing nothing to prevent this kind of violence. And they haven't. He was shouted down fairly quickly and escorted out by law enforcement within minutes. O'Rourke said gun violence prevention could be accomplished. Quote, "If we had a governor who cared more about the people of Texas than he does his own political career or his fealty to the NRA." O'Rourke continued, "And if you need any proof of that, check the schedule for the NRA's convention this Friday right here in the state of Texas. 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history in this state on his watch. What does he do about it? He goes to the NRA convention to brag about how easy he made it to purchase guns in this state, to carry them publicly without a background check whatsoever. Words, not action." The Second Amendment contains one word that seems to fall on deaf ears for the people who have championed unfettered access to guns. That word is regulated. The lack of federal regulations means that people can buy guns legally in a state with few regulations and carry them across state borders into a state with more regulations. This is seen often in New York and Chicago. The lack of federal red flag laws and the lack of federal background checks, the utter lack of federal regulations that would curtail immediate access to firearms. Every time there's a mass shooting, there's lots of accusations and recriminations, but nothing changes. The stories hit the airwaves, the anger rises with the rhetoric, and then the stories fade away, out of memory. What can we do? The National Rifle Association has their 2022 national conference this week in Texas. Former President Trump will be there to speak. So will Abbott and Cruz and many Republican lawmakers. Houston's mayor said the conference has been on the books for 2 years and it's a contractual obligation. The conference will proceed as the NRA doesn't back down. There will no doubt be protests outside the venue. In fact, Bette Midler is encouraging her followers to come armed to an organization to protest the conference on May 26th. And in a big thing of irony here. The NRA doesn't allow guns in its conference. Even if former President Trump was not speaking at the conference, guns would not be allowed by the group that pushes for guns to be allowed everywhere else. Why? Because they know it's a fucking security risk. The actress made remarks while responding to a tweet suggesting, quote, "People should show up and protest at this conference." Miller's tweeted Wednesday at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas this weekend, "Come armed." Even without Ms. Midler's encouragement, Texas gun laws practically guarantee there will be as many firearms as among the protesters. You know where they won't be any firearms? Inside the venue. Because President Trump is going to be there. Secret Service, fine, understandable. But the NRA has always, or maybe not always, but for a long time, prevented guns from being at its conference. Which is why the only time you see a gun, when a speaker is speaking and holding it up for the cameras. So what can be done about this? I don't know. I honestly don't know what can be done. I know some things that can work on this issue that have long-standing majority of support among the American people. Universal background checks. That means if you buy it from your fucking brother, you get a background check. Why? People can't be trusted. Simple as that. People can say, well, we have background checks, and if you sell your gun to a person that's not allowed to have them, then you're breaking the law. No, that's not how it works. The way it works, legally speaking, is all you have to do is say, well, judge, I didn't know this person wasn't allowed to have a gun. I did my due diligence. I checked their ID. They were said who they say they were. I have no obligation to run a background check on this person. So I used my best judgment and sold him the weapon. If that weapon is then used in the commission of crime, no one is held at fault. No one else but the killer is held at fault, despite the fact that due diligence was not actually practiced. We have laws that prevent certain individuals from obtaining firearms and weapons for a reason. Even Republicans know that mentally ill people, people that are troubled, people that beat their wives and girlfriends and that were former criminals shouldn't be allowed to have a gun. But by God, if you try to make me wait 2 days to have a weapon when I'm a law-abiding citizen, then fuck you, buddy. You're preventing me from carrying out my constitutional right. That is the narrative that they have. That is what they always say. Every single time. Make no mistake about it. Republican lawmakers, some Democrat lawmakers are beholden to their constituents. And their constituents, the loudest ones that are pro-gun, it's not necessarily the NRA. It's Gun Owners of America. If you haven't heard about that until this program right now, I suggest you look it up. 30,000 member organization, the most vocal and rabid pro-Second Amendment group in the United States. They're the ones that pushed for these conferences to continue back in the 90s after Columbine. That's how long this has been going on. There hasn't, majority of my life, we've been dealing with school shootings because we do not want to do anything in this country, because that's what it boils down to. Politically, we don't have the fucking will to do anything. Hamstrung by politicians and lobby groups from doing even the most basic of things, like universal background checks, to stop the proliferation of guns to people that shouldn't have them, to people that the vast majority of the United States agrees should not be carrying a weapon. We can't even get red flag laws in the United States because that's a violation of due process. No, it's not. It is not a violation of due process. You just don't like it. The way a red flag works is that a person goes to a judge and be like, Your Honor, I have reason to believe that so-and-so is going to hurt themselves or somebody else. Whatever the case may be. Here's the evidence I have. Can we temporarily take their weapon away from them? Basically a grand jury. You can say that the process doesn't have enough due process. I'm okay with that. I understand that argument. But to be against it in its entirety, to be against the idea itself, just means you put up your ability to have a gun and you put up your fear of having your gun taken away from you above the protection and life of other people. Because you're paranoid that the government, big bad government, big brother, is going to come and confiscate your fucking gun. Despite all the evidence to the contrary. You are conspiratorial minded and paranoid, and you need to be called out about it. If you are one of those people watching this program, feel free to contact me later. We can have a debate about it. But that is my thoughts and opinions on this as of right now. This anger that you're hearing in my voice is genuine. I can't stomach this shit. I am trying to keep as calm as I can. But 14 people this past week died again. And the most people can say that we're going to do about it is make kids live in fear again. Get them security. The likely reason why the ICE or Border Patrol agents that ended up being the SWAT team that eventually took down the gunman could not get into that room is because of the it's likely, don't have 100% proof of this, okay? It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Is likely because they already had reinforced doors. SWAT teams are trained to breach doorways. And if their miniature batter ram could not break that door down, then that is more than likely a reinforced door to prevent slaughter from happening. They had to be let in by a staff member. How crazy is that? We have kids going to school with bulletproof backpacks to try and use them as shields against guns that shouldn't ever be in the vicinity of a fucking school. And we can't get background checks on everybody. We can't require training. We can't require people to take insurance to at least in the instance of a national tragedy. Should it happen, the families wouldn't have to cover their own medical and funeral expenses. This should not be acceptable to anybody, but it is. And that is infuriating. I don't know what else there is to say about this. There are certain things that we could do as a country that would help the situation at least a little bit. One of those things, maybe raising the age to buy a fucking gun. Can we entertain that? Or shall not be infringed, stop us from doing that? I can't, man. I can't with this. It's so... Nothing. The likelihood of anything being done is very small. Another school shooting and nothing can happen. We got results in Parkland, a Republican state, because kids, children, people that weren't even old enough to vote were able to make change happen. And even that change, as good of a victory as it was, is trying to be chipped away at as we speak. And there was another school shooting. And Republicans across the country have made it easier to have a gun because they are afraid of this happening without realizing that part of this happening is because of the laws that they passed. We can't even have a waiting period of 2 days of buying a gun. We have national background checks that in some states overrule the federal government and say that you have to sell that gun if they can't return a background check within 3 days. It's called a default sale. How messed up is that? You can't tell me that's an infringement on a right. And if you tell me it's an infringement on a right, you can't tell me it's an overly burdensome one at that. And be taken seriously. I'm not going to stand for it. And there's more fuckery afoot with this. And part of that fuckery, because it can't be the gun that does this. No, guns don't kill people. People kill people. True. Guns make it easier to kill people. The proliferation of guns increases the likelihood of people dying. These are facts. Facts don't care about your feelings. They don't care about your ideology. They are. They exist without your acknowledgement of them or not. And they want to scapegoat people with mental health issues. And they not only want to scapegoat people with mental health issues, right-wing extremist, evil pieces of shit. Yes, what I am talking about, the people that I'm talking about right now, that I'm about to talk about right now, are fucking evil. I know in this program that we say we do not want to increase the vitriol that happens in the country, but you have to call this out when it is what it is. And this is objectively evil. They are trying to blame this on a trans person. Why? Because, quote unquote, it's good optics to them. If you spent any time whatsoever on Twitter in right-wing spaces, you 100% have seen this story. This should not be anything new to you. But not everybody is able to go through the muck and deal with this shit as much as we are. And they don't know about this. Or if they do, they're just finding out about it either on this program or prior to me talking about this. And it has to be said because this is objectively evil. It is abhorrent. The far right is falsely blaming a trans woman for the Texas school shooting. This report came out of Vice News, but we saw it on this program. We saw it on right-wing blogs, things that look at, they come out of the 90s with a ton of ads, a ton of scams on them that people go to get their news from, get their lies from, to get their confirmation bias from. Posted all across Twitter. Images stolen from another trans woman's Twitter or Facebook and posted as if this is the person that did the killing. Why? Why was it done? Because it helps their narrative. Propaganda abounds, and we are starting to live in fucking hell world. I am not a doomer. This is infuriating, and it makes me question my faith in humanity. So we're going to pull it up on the screen really quick for some of this stuff. So this is the article from Vice News. Vice News does some decent investigative journalism still. We're going to use them as an example here. Okay. So what we have here, Paul Gosar. If there's something evil being said, something abhorrent, something racist, something sexist, something transphobic, you bet your ass fucking Paul Gosar is going to talk about it. A transsexual leftist illegal alien made Salvato Romos. It's apparently your kind of trash. Fuck you, you evil piece of shit. Because that is objectively evil. Stand back and stand by. Of course. Racist fucking statement. A Proud Boy fuckwit. Found a picture on Reddit that does not have anything to do with this person whatsoever. Let's go over to the tweets. So, I'm just going to read these out. Right-wingers, including Dr. Paul Gosar, he should lose his fucking doctorate, have been spreading misinformation that the shooter in Texas was a trans woman, using random photos they pulled from Reddit. The person in the photos is currently posting on Reddit in an apparent horror that her photos are being used this way. Don't want to spread her image even further in connection with this bullshit. But if you see a photo of a person in red long sleeve Coca-Cola shirt and black miniskirt, that is falsely identified Reddit poster in the screenshots that they're talking about. How can anybody, I don't care if you're left wing or right wing, be supportive of this bullshit? You're putting an innocent person's life at danger. For what? To say that trans people are mentally ill? Are you fucking kidding me? You're mentally ill. No. That is, they're not mentally ill. They know exactly what they're doing. They're not driven by delusions that they can't help. They are 100% in control of their own mind right now. And to say that this is mental illness, what I just did was wrong, and I apologize for that. So we got a question from the chat. Hold on, sorry, I'm having mess ups on my multi-screen here. From Bisky. So, oh, did it not add? Where's the oh, I don't have the highlights on. There we go. So Bisky __ is that 3? Yeah, 2 underscores. I have no idea who Paul Gosar is. Paul Gosar is a Republican congressman. Don't recall what state he's from, but made a meme Attack on Titan thing where he was one of the characters of Attack on Titan killing Titans, and AOC was a Titan. That's the kind of person he is. Racist. Speaks at American First conferences with his buddy Nick Fuentes. Continuing on with these tweets, there's also a photo going around of a person with bangs drinking out of a green glass bottle. The person in the photo has since tweeted that the photo is of them and not of the shooter, who was killed. People reportedly, 4chaners, have apparently just been grabbing random photos of trans women they think look remotely like the photo of the shooter. They've apparently been able to find, or think they found, who knows, and using them to claim the shooter was trans. And I saw this in my Facebook group circles, because yes, I'm old. I still use Facebook. Shoot me. It's how I keep up with the news. It's how I am able to track down right-wing narratives without having to go to 4chan to see how it's entered the ether. Entered the ether that is the basic Republican zeitgeist, basic conservative zeitgeist, without having to delve deep, deep, deep into the muck for my own sanity. Now, Paul Gosar has since deleted his tweet, right? But is he making an apology? No, because it fucking helps his narrative. That's what we're seeing here. I don't know why anybody wants to give these people the benefit of the doubt. It is infuriating. It is evil. And people that want to give everybody, let me make sure I say this correctly. There are some arguments that should not be entertained. People that are outright lying and acting in bad faith are not actors that you should deal with kid gloves. They should not be able to air their grievances without pushback at the very least. And if they continue to go on, they should be rightly ridiculed and making an example of. Feel free to debate some of these people, but don't let their misinformation, their propaganda, their evil acts go unchallenged. Don't let them fester. Don't let them propagate. The best way to tackle these things is to, if you see it, to call it out. And if they continue to be a propagandist fuckwit, ban them from your community. Because they're not there to be a good faith actor. They're not there to have their mind changed or to learn information. They're there as a political actor with an agenda. And that agenda is abhorrent. It is evil. It is going to lead to bad outcomes. And they must be stopped. This is partly why I am no longer a free speech absolutist. I don't think the government should be the one that comes in and tells us what we can and can't say. Private company? Sure. Society in general? Absolutely. Shaming can work. But being blasted for being wrong, abhorrent, evil, those things have better effect. And if you don't speak up, I'm not going to say that you're complicit. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that a person who doesn't speak up is complicit. I believe that they're cowardly. Don't be a coward. Call them out. Give them enough rope, so to speak. Because this is on Twitch, I'm not going to say it. You know the idiom. And let them finish the job. And then pounce like a tiger. And rip them to shreds. And if you can't do that, call someone else that can. Because by not pushing back on it, you help normalize it. Which is why we're covering this on this program. On the news roundup this week. And that is what I have to say about the latest shooting.